Are you feeling sluggish, bloated, no energy? Maybe you have some toxicity. With the poor air quality and poor water quality and our foods being redesigned, it's time we step up our game. A mild cleanse every day helps move negative materials out of your body, and the bonus is it tastes great. There's a movement going where people are starting to care about their bodies and what goes in them. Our tea is all natural with organic ingredients and non-GMO, plus there's no caffeine. The energy comes from the herbs. The special blend of herbs are synergistic in creating a movement in your body. We're not here to make claims, even though we could if there were no suits around. We receive email after email stating the benefits of Life Change Tea. Then again, the suits consider testimonies a claim. So about all we have left is, it's good. Try it, and you'll like the benefits. And to help you make the choice to purchase, mention that you heard it on Red Pill 78 and you'll receive free shipping. Put Red Pill in the coupon code, hit apply, and get free shipping. It doesn't get any better than that. Life Change Tea at getthetea.com, the tea that makes you go. Also, check out some incredible health benefits at YouTube on Health Matters Now. Good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News. Just wanted to start today by wishing everyone a safe and happy Wednesday afternoon. Hope you guys have had a nice day at work and that everyone is getting home safely from work. The first thing I want to start with is a bit of a correction. Yesterday when I did this post, 3373, there was no title, and I was so hung up on the fact that SC was Supreme Court. Sarah Carter, John Solomon, I missed it. So many people in the comments let me know. Do apologize for that, everyone. Of course, I'm not trying to lead anyone astray. There was an anecdotal story that I told about Donald Trump potentially having visited J.E.'s island and realizing what was happening there. Many people said that Donald Trump has never been there. I don't want anyone to think that I was confirming that that story was correct. I was just telling it as an anecdote that someone else had relayed. So it was just simply meant to be a story, but it meant to encapsulate the fact that Donald Trump and Jeffrey are not friends, and that the things that J.E. is involved with, our president is not involved with in any respect of the word. After doing much research, there is absolutely no entry for Donald Trump or any members of his family in the flight logs, despite the claims of many media sources. The only confirmation from anyone that I saw that our president had visited the island was a deposition with J.E.'s brother, I believe in 2009, where he claimed that the president had visited at least once. Now, of course, that is only the testimony of the brother of a charged sex offender. So I don't want to give it any credence, and I just don't want anybody to think that I am trying to say definitively that the president went there. This was what was reported in many outlets, and even several right-leaning outlets. So just trying to put as much information out there as I can and allow you guys to make up your own minds. Now next, something that I missed yesterday that I did not put in the video that I wanted to. This is a tweet from, of course, my good friend Methods, and it's related to this post right here about that 11th hour testimony. Now, if you'll remember, just in the days leading up to this post being dropped, we were told that there was 11th hour testimony that was coming to be given to the Inspector General. Well, Methods confirms here that Steele did a 15-hour interview with Horowitz's people while under oath. This will be the biggest 11th hour testimony in modern history, and they are all insanely screwed if he sold them down the treason river. And I think that we know that he probably did. The fact that he came to testify at the very last moment really tells me that Christopher Steele had some things to say that perhaps he was afraid to say before, he didn't want to admit. I think that he probably testified authentically and truthfully, and Methods is right. They're all screwed. Also from yesterday, I did not mention that Ross Perot had passed away. The 89-year-old Ross Perot, former presidential candidate twice. He was a bit of an upset in the 1992 presidential election between George H.W. Bush and William Jefferson Clinton. Many people on the right at that time said that Ross Perot helped William Jefferson Clinton, win that election. But Unfortunately, Ross Perot has passed away, but before he passed, he did donate to President Trump's re-election campaign. On Tuesday, American billionaire Ross Perot passed away at 89 after a battle with cancer. God bless his soul. Ross Perot was considered the spoiler in the 1992 election when he jumped into the presidential race as an independent running against Republican George H.W. Bush and Democrat Bill Clinton. Perot, a Texas billionaire, received 19% of the vote, the largest for a third-party candidate in several decades. The last political act before his death was to donate to President Donald Trump's re-election campaign, as reported by Fox News. In his last documented political act, self-made billionaire and two-time presidential candidate Ross Perot wrote out 2 checks to President Trump's re-election campaign before succumbing to his battle with leukemia at the age of 89, according to a report. Perot, who ran for president as a third-party candidate in 1992 and 1996, is largely credited with providing a roadmap for Trump's presidential campaign. Like Trump, Perot ran as a billionaire populist against the Republican establishment. His focus on the North American Free Trade Agreement rather than the national debt and his use of cable news for laying out his agenda were both familiar elements of Trump's campaign. As Democrat strategist James Carville put it in a 2016 podcast, if Donald Trump is the Jesus of the disenchanted, displaced, non-college white voter, then Perot was the John the Baptist of that sort of movement. Stirring words from James Carville, the mouth from the South. You don't often hear James Carville talking nicely about people on the other side of the aisle. I do want to say, Ross Perot was definitely a big influence in my younger years. I thought it was absolutely amazing that someone who was not a Democrat or a Republican could just come out of nowhere and run and take as many of the votes as he did. Even if he did push the vote towards William Jefferson Clinton, I don't know that we had a good choice back then in 1992. So, moving on. Well, it looks like Angela Merkel has been caught shaking yet again. And in this tweet from Incarnated ET, he's got a post from Germananon from the boards, says that while she's shaking, she's deaf repeating herself. I am reading, she talks to herself. Du schaffst das, meaning you can do it. She's motivating herself not to faint, I think, or to withstand something. Very interesting. Let's take a look at this piece from the Gateway Pundit. German Chancellor Angela Merkel seen shaking uncontrollably again, renewing health concerns. This is now the 3rd time in recent weeks. Chancellor Angela Merkel of Germany was seen again shaking uncontrollably, the 3rd time in less than a month, renewing concerns about her health. Merkel, 64, was attending an event Wednesday with Antti Rinne, the Prime Minister of Finland. As the pair watched a military honor guard, her arms and legs trembled and she seemed to be mouthing something repeatedly. At one point, she clasped her hands in front of her, trying to control the shaking. An hour later, at a press briefing with reporters, she declared, I am well. When a reporter followed up with another question about her tremors, Merkel claimed the shaking was part of the psychological trauma she suffered after experiencing uncontrolled trembling under similar circumstances on June 18th while appearing with President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine in the full afternoon sun, the New York Times reported. I was clear in saying that I am doing well, and I think that can be accepted, Merkel said Wednesday. I said that I'm trying to come to grips with standing out there shaking while Mr. Zelensky visited, and I think it's going to blow over sometime soon. I'm not yet there yet, but I'm convinced that I am quite capable of doing my work. After the first incident, Merkel's aides said she was simply dehydrated. She appeared fine in a later press conference. 9 days later, in an event with German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, she began shaking uncontrollably again. She said then that the episode was linked to what occurred during Zelensky's visit. I must live with this for a little while, Merkel said on Wednesday, but I think that just as it has come, it will go away. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at this most recent footage of Angela Merkel shaking uncontrollably. For those of you wondering, yes, I did reverse the positioning of that video in order to overcome a potential copyright strike. So if you can remember from the video just a moment ago, you would have seen that it's not just us that are noticing that something is wrong with Angela. Looks like the people that were standing in the background were clearly noticing the fact that she was shaking uncontrollably. Now, I just want to state once again, I am not making fun of Angela Merkel for being old. I am not making a judgment call about Angela Merkel for being sick, other than to say it looks like perhaps she is having difficulties performing the duties that are necessary as Chancellor of Germany. Hopefully Angela is going to be okay. But if she needs to step down as Chancellor of Germany, that's definitely a conversation that needs to be had within the halls of German bureaucracy. Now, good news for General Flynn. More Flynn news. A judge has smacked down the corrupt DOJ and signals support for General Flynn in the FARA case after prosecutors allege Flynn is a co-conspirator. As reported earlier, the Justice Department, in an order on July 3rd, reversed its position on General Flynn in the Flynn Intel Group FARA case and is now alleging that Flynn is an unindicted co-conspirator rather than a government witness for an upcoming trial for his former business partner. A federal judge assigned to the FARA case on Tuesday slammed the corrupt DOJ and signaled support for General Flynn after Mueller's thugs planned to designate Flynn as an unindicted co-conspirator in the trial for Bijan Rafikian. U.S. District Judge for the Eastern District of Virginia, Anthony Trenga, a George W. Bush appointee, ruled in a 37-page memorandum on Tuesday evening that the DOJ has not presented evidence sufficient to establish evidence of a conspiracy for the purposes of admitting the hearsay statements of alleged co-conspirators. This is good news. And here is Technofog, excellent lawyer on Twitter, always looking up great things and bringing them to us. It says right here, the United States at this point has not presented or proffered any evidence sufficient to establish a preponderance of the evidence of conspiracy for the purposes of admitting against the defendant the hearsay statements of alleged conspirators. Another absurd theory by the DOJ was rejected by Judge Trenga. The FARA statement and related filings do not reflect the existence of the alleged conspiracy to act as undisclosed Turkish agents. The judge also stated that the U.S. didn't have the evidence that Turkey funded the work by Flynn Intel Group. Pending further order by the court, the U.S. may not argue or state to the jury that Turkey funded the work by Flynn Intel Group under the contractual agreement. And here are a couple more tweets from Technofog, just stating that the jury is not going to be able to hear the fact that the government, the DOJ, thinks that Turkey funded the Flynn Intel Group. And Sarah Carter on Tuesday evening spoke to Fox News host Sean Hannity about the new developments on Flynn's FARA case and the corrupt DOJ prosecutors. Sarah Carter said Judge Trenga will be making a decision very soon on whether or not to allow the government to designate Flynn a co-conspirator. Investigative reporter Sarah Carter also said that according to sources, the government used extraordinary tactics to retaliate against Flynn by crafting a very complicated FARA to corner him into making a false statement. Not surprising. Judge Emmett Sullivan, who is assigned to a separate case for General Flynn, issued an order on Tuesday afternoon demanding a full explanation as to why prosecutors are now reversing their decision to call Flynn as a witness. Let's go ahead and look at this clip from Hannity, and it is tweeted out by none other than our president, Donald J. Trump.
Here now with the full report. Fox News investigative reporter Sarah Carter. You know what's so unbelievable about FARA violations were never a big deal. You know, Mueller and his team, they ignored the Russian dossier, which we know was spread before the election to influence the American voters. Washington Post, David Corn, Michael Isikoff. Not one bit of information on the paid-for Russian lies that became also the basis for the FISA applications.
That's so true, Sean. And this is what's so important about what Sidney Powell put in her brief, which, by the way, was unsealed by the judge in the Eastern District of Virginia just today. What's important about it is that we learned so much more about how they were targeting Michael Flynn from the very beginning. We learned that David Loffman, who was the head of the National Security Division of the Department of Justice, himself forced Flynn to sign the FARA. Not only did Flynn hire attorneys who were experts in the FARA, which is the Foreign Agents Registration Act, they hired Robert Kellner, who's one of the top attorneys in Washington, D.C., but he was also with Flynn while they signed this FARA. They looked at it in detail. According to the brief, that every part of that FARA application was looked at in detail before Flynn signed it. Flynn signed off on the FARA. Everything was fine. And now, even though they have been calling him a cooperating witness the entire time that they've been dealing with Bijan Rafikian, which was his former business partner, they called Flynn a cooperating witness. Now they want to call him a co-conspirator, just because, as you said, he decided and said, I can't lie. When I signed this FARA, I believed everything was absolutely credible. Everything was absolutely accurate. You can't ask me to do that. And the fact that he did not do that, then the prosecutors turned the screws on him again, according to sources and according to the brief, and said, no, well, since you're not going to do what we want you to do, you're now a co-conspirator in the case. And I think this is really significant because it plays into what's been happening from the very beginning with Robert Mueller's team.
You know, think of what Judge Ellis said at the beginning of the first trial of Paul Manafort. He said, we know this is, you don't care about his taxes from years gone by. We know what this is about. You want to put the screws to Manafort so he'll either sing or compose. Compose being lie, say what you want him to say so you can get Donald Trump. And with that said, he started the case.
Well, that's it. And one very important point about this, Sean, that a lot of people don't understand is that normally FARAs aren't prosecuted. You're right. But more than that is that when they receive, example, an issue from the FARA office to file a FARA, it's very simple. It's very easy to fill out. According to sources that I've spoken to, Flynn's FARA was so extraordinarily complicated. It was almost as if they had crafted the FARA to try to corner him into making a statement that wouldn't be correct. So that's something that they're looking into as well. Now, the judge has not decided yet whether or not to allow the government to call him a co-conspirator. So this still hasn't been decided. It's expected to be decided soon.
All right, Sarah Carter, investigative reporter, great work tonight. And we are hoping that General Flynn gets justice.
We are all hoping that General Flynn gets justice, and it is so obvious that the government is doing whatever they can, and I'm going to stress this again. This is not Trump's government. This is the holdovers from the last administration, the people from Mueller's team. They are trying to trap General Flynn in yet another instance so that he will either make up things against the president, testify against him, or do something to incriminate himself. Except they're the ones who are committing the criminal acts. General Flynn will be exonerated on all charges, and perhaps we'll see him on the ticket in 2020 with our President Trump. Now, from the Speaker 2018 on Twitter, it looks like Britain's ambassador in Washington, Sir Kim Darroch, has been forced to resign following a diplomatic storm caused by the leaking of his comments in which he criticized President Donald Trump. You can't do that when you're an ambassador to the country of the president that you are bashing. In the past few minutes, Sir Kim Darroch has resigned as UK ambassador to Washington. The Foreign Office just released this letter. Let's go ahead and take a look. Since the leak of official documents from the embassy, there has been a great deal of speculation surrounding my position and the duration of my remaining term as ambassador. I want to put an end to that speculation. The current situation is making it impossible for me to carry out my role as I would like. Although my posting is not due to end until the end of this year, I believe in the current circumstances the responsible course is to allow the appointment of a new ambassador. I am grateful to all those in the UK and the US who have offered their support during this difficult few days. This has brought home to me the depth of friendship and close ties between our two countries. I have been deeply touched. I am also grateful to all those with whom I have worked over the last 4 decades, particularly my team here in the US. The professionalism and integrity of the British civil service is the envy of the world. I will leave it full of confidence that its value remains in safe hands. Five Eyes cleanup right here. You can't go around bashing the president of the country that you are the ambassador to, Kim. Hate to tell you that. Sorry you had to learn it like this. How very, very British of you, though. Glad to see you're doing the right thing. All right, and some major news coming out of Puerto Rico. There have been several arrests taking place there. This is a post from Vote, and it says this is a developing story from PR Anon. This morning, the Puerto Rico FBI arrested the following 3 people. The managing partner of global accounting firm BDO in Puerto Rico, Fernando Scherer, the ex-secretary of PR Health and Human Services, ASES in Spanish, that would be Angela Avila, and the ex-secretary of PR Department of Education, Julia Kelleher. For those who do not know, BDO is a very large accounting firm. It can be considered a global powerhouse in accounting and is usually well insulated with their army of lawyers. For the managing partner to be arrested, the FBI has to have had pretty damning evidence. Here is the link to his bio right there. Angela Avila had quit her position at ASES a short 3 weeks ago when the first political booms happened here in Puerto Rico, but that obviously did not help her. The Puerto Rico Health and Human Services handles the PR version of Medicaid, and that system seems to have always had problems and run out of money. Surprise, surprise. This is very interesting timing, as just yesterday, Congress has been discussing giving Puerto Rico $1.2 billion for Medicaid. Julia Kelleher was the PR Department of Education from January 2nd, 2017 to April 1st, 2019. She quit on April Fool's Day. Interesting. She was arrested this morning in Washington, D.C. The Department of Education is the Puerto Rico department with the largest budget at around $1.6 billion. Yet the condition of most schools in Puerto Rico are worse than in many inner cities. Low salaries for teachers, old textbooks, no computers in most schools, some classrooms are still destroyed from Hurricane Maria, etc. Please take a look at her Wikipedia bio, as she has been involved in many activities with children in Puerto Rico, D.C., Pennsylvania, and California. There is something fishy about this lady, no pun intended. Let's see. So far, I have only found Spanish articles on the arrests. We'll edit and update as things progress here, and links to a couple of them right there. So, Edit 1. The FBI just went into the Puerto Rico Treasury Department and took possession of many computers, including those used by the recently fired Puerto Rican Treasury Secretary, Raul Maldonado. By the way, the 2 ladies that were arrested this morning, Kelleher and Avila, actually managed close to 50% of the total budget of the government of Puerto Rico, as Education and ASES are the 2 departments with the largest budgets. Edit 2. The governor of Puerto Rico is currently on vacation in Europe. Yesterday, several internal text messages between people in his administration on the app Telegram were leaked, in which he and his people discussed him going on a made-up vacation and leaving the Puerto Rico Secretary of Justice as the interim governor as a taunt against the president of the Puerto Rican Senate. In these texts, they also ridicule and speak quite rudely about Jennifer Gonzalez, the representative commissioner resident of Puerto Rico in Congress. These attacks began when she attended Mike Pence's event in Miami for Hispanics for Trump. She has publicly began to express support for Donald Trump and contradicting many of the falsehoods the Puerto Rico governor and the mayor of San Juan have been saying about Trump regarding Puerto Rico. Edit 3. Press conference will be held by the FBI in Puerto Rico today at 11 a.m. Edit 4. The FBI press conference is in progress. We are looking at fraud, embezzlement, wire fraud, money laundering, and other charges for several of the people. There were arrests in Puerto Rico and D.C., and people are being arrested in Connecticut. First English article on at least the XP Puerto Rico Education Director arrest is out. That's right here. Edit 5, first English article on the arrests. And Edit 6, 6 people arrested today under 32 charges: fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, electronic fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to launder money. Tens of millions of dollars involved in all these cases. This is great news, you guys. We've known for a long time that Puerto Rico has been a hotbed of corruption. The theater that was going on during the hurricane with that mayor and the shirt that she was wearing, just ridiculous stuff. So let's go ahead and take a look at this English article regarding the arrests. From Caribbean Business, former heads of Puerto Rico Education Department and Health Insurance Administration arrested, along with the president of BDO. A grand jury returns a 32-count indictment. The former secretary of the Puerto Rico Department of Education, Julia Kelleher, the former director of the Health Insurance Administration, Angela Avila, the president of the accounting and auditing firm BDO, Fernando Scherer, and his employee, Alberto Velazquez Piñol, were arrested by federal officials following a grand jury having returned a 32 22-count indictment. You know what those were, guys? Those were sealed indictments. They've now been unsealed. Kelleher, who resigned April 1st, was arrested Washington, D.C. by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The grand jury indictment alleges she steered an education contract worth $95,000 to an unqualified firm run by associates. Separately, the grand jury points to a scheme in which Kelleher and others awarded more than $13 million in contracts that included $220,000 in commissions. The Justice Department held a press conference Wednesday where Rosa Emilia Rodriguez Velez, U.S. Attorney for the District of Puerto Rico, provided details of the operation carried out by the FBI and the Office of Inspector General of the Department of Health and Human Services earlier on Wednesday. A day earlier, former Governor Ricardo Rosello's chief advisor, Alfonso Orona, had been interviewed by OIG HHS agents. The arrests were made less than 24 hours since Orona testified before a grand jury regarding Velázquez Pinol's functions in relation to the government. U.S. Attorney Rodriguez Velez assured the governor was not part of the ongoing investigation, for which she later replied to questions from the press that it involved several municipalities as well as new accusations coming. Orona admitted that he was questioned about Velázquez Pinol's activities in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria to authenticate official documents and provide evidence of the participation of the contractor in the awarding of government health plan contracts. Velázquez Pinol was also in charge of working with the health department in the implementation of the first medical management information system and served as external advisor to the Department of Education. In a statement, Governor Rosello, who was vacationing in Europe and said he would return earlier than planned, added that his administration will not tolerate corruption, and anyone who betrays the trust in government should pay with the full weight of law. Likewise, I reiterate the call for collaboration with the law and order agencies that work on these cases, he added. Members of the conspiracy and scheme failed to disclose that portions of the funds assigned under the contracts would be paid as commissions by the contractors to individuals with government influence in exchange for obtaining the government contract, adding that by paying unauthorized commissions, the cost of government contracts was unnecessarily inflated and increased, the indictment reads. It says that from around January 2017 through around April 2018, Kelleher, Glenda Ponce, and Myra Ponce, and others known and unknown to the grand jury, did knowingly and willfully conspire to devise a scheme to defraud and obtain money and properties by means of false and fraudulent pretenses and promises. The purpose of the conspiracy, the document says, was to steer contracts between the Puerto Rico Department of Education and Colón and Ponce Incorporated. This was accomplished through a corrupted bidding process wherein Colón and Ponce were received with a competitive advantage based in part on the close relationship between Kelleher, Glenda Ponce, and Myra Ponce. In or about 2017, while working at Education and representing herself to be a special assistant to Kelleher, Glenda Ponce assisted Colón and Ponce and her sister Myra in securing a contract with Education. Kelleher allegedly instructed department employees to award a contract to Colón and Ponce. The alleged conspirators face years of imprisonment if found guilty. The indictment alleges that the defendants used Kelleher's and Avila's positions as Secretary of Education and Executive Director of ASES, respectively, to benefit and enrich themselves and defraud the United States as follows. We won't go through all of these because it's essentially much of the information we've already learned. But I suggest that you guys, if you want to go and get some more information on this, do follow the link in the description below. And I think that this is the perfect time to talk about public corruption, because that is exactly what these individuals have been engaging in. And I have a thread that I did yesterday on public corruption, and we're going to take a look at that right now. Okay, so I've had many people asking about the importance of the fact that the Public Corruption Division of the SDNY is handling the case against socialite and billionaire financier J.E., the guy with the island and the plane. So here's some info on it. So the Public Corruption Division is a division within the Office of the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Southern District of New York. Each division handles cases specific to categories of criminal cases. So others include narcotics, terrorism, organized crime, and money laundering. The Public Corruption Division is important because it works with the FBI and other federal and state, local, and investigative agencies to safeguard the integrity of all levels of government. This unit would prosecute crimes of corruption committed by elected officials, as well as government employees, individuals, and companies doing business with city, state, and federal government. Corruption crimes cover a range of criminal acts, including but not limited to bribery, embezzlement, and frauds committed against federal government agencies. In In my eyes, the fact that the Public Corruption Division is overseeing this case, which appears to be crimes committed by a non-governmental person, means that the crimes include corruption committed by many elected officials and government employees. We know that J.E. has a wealth of connections to powerful individuals, which include the likes of Bill and Hillary Clinton. Here are his flight logs detailing the names of many people, which certainly include the names of other political and governmental figures. And I've got them linked right here. Now, along with the flight manifest that was released, J.E.'s Little Black Book, which contained roughly 1,000 names of phone numbers and contacts that he had, and they range from close friends like Les Wexner, who we spoke about yesterday, to peripheral contacts from the worlds of politics, business, the media, and European high society, including the UK's Prince Andrew, who we know he was very close to. Now, of course, Bloomberg, in that article, they try to tie Jeffrey to the Trump family. And it's true that President Trump and several members of his family are listed within that phone book, but that's only because they ran in the same circles in southern Florida. Now, the most staggering thing about this Little Black Book is that there's an entry for the main number to the White House. So that means that J.E. had a direct connection to the White House in the former presidential administration. Here is the link to the SDNY divisions page where you can find out more about each unit. And if you guys will remember Eric Prince and his infamous 2016 interview with Breitbart, he claimed the FBI had evidence showing that Hillary had actually visited the island at least 10 times, and I linked to that article right here. Now, we know that Hillary is a resident of New York, and it's plausible to think that she was engaged in political corruption during her time in office and while she was Secretary of State, and that corruption involved dealings with Epstein, as he is reported to have been a co-founder of the Clinton Foundation. Look at that. Was one of the primary goals of the foundation to give cover to human trafficking, besides the already obvious pay-to-play that we've talked about on so many occasions? Although the Clintons publicly distanced themselves from J.E. once he was exposed and labeled as an offender, they maintained a cozy relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell, long suspected to be a procurer of young girls for Epstein, essentially his fixer and madam. Now, Maxwell has now been named as a defendant as of yesterday in a filing listing Virginia Giuffre as the plaintiff. Maxwell was known as a fixer and madam for Epstein, and she largely handled the procurement of girls for the sex offender. Here are the court docs showing Giuffre versus Maxwell, and I just wanted to give a hat tip to Methods for finding those and bringing them to my attention. She is set to appear on the 11th, so in a matter of days. And I finish here by saying, in the days and weeks to come, the full scope of the involvement of Epstein's large network of public and private individuals will be revealed. The SDNY Public Corruption Division will have no shortage of co-conspirators to prosecute. The storm has arrived. Now, as I reported a couple of months ago, J.E. was listed as a confidential informant to the FBI in some documents that were released. And Alex Acosta reportedly claimed at the time that J.E. belonged to intelligence. To appreciate the significance of what I'm about to share, you really need to go back and read yesterday's post. The J.E. rabbit hole goes a lot deeper than you think. In that piece, I shared many lesser-known but extremely bizarre facts about J.E. and the people around him. I also noted that it appeared his real job was to run a blackmail operation to ensnare some of the most wealthy and powerful people on Earth. I alluded to the possibility that he was collecting this priceless information on behalf of a third party, and then just today we learned the following via the Daily Beast. Is the J.E. case going to cause a problem for confirmation hearings? Acosta had been asked. Acosta had explained breezily, apparently, that back in the day, he'd just one meeting on the J.E. case. He'd cut the non-prosecution deal with one of J.E.'s attorneys because he had been told to back off, that J.E. was above his pay grade. I was told J.E. belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone. He told his interviewers in the Trump transition, who evidently thought that was a sufficient answer, and went ahead and hired Acosta. The Labor Department had no comment about this. This is incredible that Acosta was told this. No wonder they hired him, because President Trump and his team knew that this was going to come in handy later on down the line. For almost 2 decades, for some nebulous reason, whether to do with ties to foreign intelligence, his billions of dollars, or his social connections, J.E., whose alleged sexual sickness and horrific assaults on women without means or ability to protect themselves is well known in his circle, remained untouchable. Now, how could that happen? How could that happen unless he was tied to some intelligence agency? It should be noted the reason I attach credibility to the above is based on who wrote it, Vicky Ward. She has an extensive history of digging into J.E. and wrote one of the earliest profiles on him back in 2003, as she notes in today's article. She said, "I spent many months on his trail in 2002 for Vanity Fair and discovered not only that he was not who he claimed to be professionally, but also that he had allegedly assaulted 2 young sisters, one of whom had been underage at the time. Very bravely, they were prepared to go on the record. They were afraid he'd use all his influence to discredit them, and their fear turned out to be legitimate. As the article was being readied for publication, J.E. made a visit to the office of Vanity Fair's then editor, Graydon Carter, and suddenly the woman and their allegations were removed from the article. He's sensitive about the young women," Carter told me at the time. Editor's note, Carter had previously denied this allegation. He also mentioned he's finagled a photograph of J.E. in a swimsuit out of the encounter, and there was also some feeble excuse about the article being stronger as a business story. J.E. had also leaned heavily on my ex-husband's uncle, Conrad Black, to try to exert his influence on me, which was particularly unwelcome given that Black happened to be my ex-husband's boss at the time. Many people had assumed that J.E. was untouchable merely because he had so much dirt on so many powerful people, but it increasingly looks far bigger than that. It appears he may have been untouchable because he was systematically collecting this information on behalf of an intelligence agency. If so, we need to find out precisely who he was working for. This should be the #1 story in the country right now. Blackmail at this level is a genuine national security issue. Incredible reporting. This is exactly what I believed was going on the entire time, and now it's finally come out. Jeffrey was doing this on behalf of an intelligence agency. Now, whether that was the Clowns, whether that was about another agency that starts with an M in a country we can't talk about, or if it was for another agency in another country altogether. I think that those are the top 2 right there that it might be. So we're going to have to find out very soon because this is all going to come out. Discovery. Is the government going to claim national security on this case? I sure hope that President Trump, his Department of Justice, is strong enough to push back and give us the truth. Now, finally, I just wanted to show here, I had mentioned yesterday something about Jeffrey's Wikipedia page being edited, and it was not his personal information, but some information taken from the section about his personal life. There was pieces in here about Clinton, the number of times that he flew on the plane, as well as the number of hours that people like Kevin Spacey were on there. And that has been removed right here. You can see that the section is different. And I just want to thank Incarnated ET for putting that tweet out there so that I could share it. All right, I think that's all I have for you today. I want to thank everyone for joining me. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.